All right, thanks everyone. Welcome to our RecPoker Mixed Game demonstration. We're going to be doing this every month from now on. As you know, in 2022, we're trying to make mixed games more of an emphasis here at RecPoker because they're so damn fun. And a lot of our members are really more comfortable with Hold'em, but it's time to broaden those horizons, folks. So we've been partnering up with Jake at unshuffled.io, and Jake's volunteered to come in every month and do a little demonstration of what the next month's mixed game is going to be in our Mixed Game Player of the Year race. So as you know, on the second Wednesday of every month, John Somsky runs a mixed game tournament, and we collect the points towards a Player of the Year race all year round. And every Saturday night, we do a little practice mixed games so that people can get a little experience with it before we start playing for those Player of the Year points. But just to give folks a little extra leg up, Jake's here to actually a month in advance take us through the mechanics of each mixed game that we're going to be playing, and using his amazing program Unshuffled to demonstrate how to do it. So Jake, I'm so glad you're here. I'm excited to spread some mixed game love with RecPoker Nation. Thanks for doing this, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, wouldn't have it any other way. Well, take us away. Lead us into mixed game land.
Awesome. And you can hear me all right, yeah?
Sounding good, boss.
Great. So we are, as Jim said, we are really branching out here from Texas Hold'em to Limit Texas Hold'em. It's a huge step.
Yeah, we're starting with little baby steps. That's right.
But I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. So like Jim says, we're gonna use Unshuffled, which is the poker company site that I started. Actually started it with my dad in 2020. And our whole goal was to be able to build and play games that maybe aren't as traditional as standard, like, you know, the regular Texas Hold'ems and Omahas. Even some of the games you might be able to find on other sites. We've built this platform where you can build really any game. So whether it's Limit Holdem or something crazy that you and your friends want to play, if you want to play it online, you can do it on Unshuffled. So I personally was not super familiar with playing a lot of Limit Hold'em. I know what it is, and I hadn't played a lot, so I did a little bit of research, tried to teach myself a little bit. So I might have a few like tips and pointers on the way to play the game, but for the most part, I'm just going to walk through exactly how the game is dealt and the mechanics. So in Unshuffled, you can create games. Let's make this bigger. You can create games. You got to sign in order to create a game. It's free to play, free to sign in. And once you do that, you can go ahead. It's moving a little slow on my side. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just not used to this.
That's okay. It's lagging a little bit, but it looks fine.
Cool. So we're going to go ahead and click on under the templates. We're going to click Start Creating. And then from here, we can either start with a blank board or from an existing template. So we can just start from an existing template because we have Texas Hold'em as one of our precursor templates. And then we'll go ahead and go to Arrange Board. And what you'll see is you've got all these face-up community cards and then the face-up player cards. So these are the whole cards that each player will get. We've got a pretty nice little set of tutorials that explain exactly what all the different things are. And so I think the best graphic shows, you know, community cards and then player cards is every card that deals to every single player. So that makes a little more sense probably.
And Jake, when you're putting this together in Unshuffled, you actually get to control exactly, because you're kind of teaching the system how to play the game, right? So you're going to control the cards that go to the community, the cards that go to the individual, and then the action as it goes through, because that'll be different from every game that we play.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And we'll go through that when we start playing. You'll see, but you know, we don't know if, you know, maybe you want to play a Texas Hold'em version where you actually get 3 cards instead of 2. You can add that 3rd card and maybe you want it to be face up. You know, you can do that by just clicking and dragging and dropping it into the field.
That is cool.
So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And then we'll go ahead and go to the deal order. You'll see we've got the 2 cards to each player. That's going to be in the first round. I'm not going to set the next cards, the community cards, because they don't come out until later on. And I want to just kind of go through it slowly when we're walking through exactly how the game is played. But you can add additional deal orders, which happen after each betting round. So we'll go ahead and go to custom settings. We're going to leave it as standard. We do have guts games, which is kind of fun, but a little more complicated. We're just going to call it Limit Holdem. Once you save it, it gets saved to your profile. And then whenever you're in a room with your friends, everyone at the table has access to all the games that anyone has made. So you don't have to, like, one person can only play one game.
Right.
And that's it. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the home page. We're going to go to host a room. And we're going to change the buy-in to slightly smaller numbers just for the sake of the limit, because for the game, it just makes sense to these smaller blinds. We could turn a turn timer on. We're not going to. We're going to have dealer's choice on, and we're going to have blinds. Typically, the blinds dictate the fixed limits for these games. You can do 5 and 10. I don't like using any odd numbers because it can create fractions, and then you have to round for the fixed limit. So I'm just going to do 1 and 2.
Smart.
1 for small and 2 for big. And then you can actually turn table stakes on or off if you want to. For the most part, we never touch that because most players don't like having that limit, that restriction on how many chips you can lose. But if you just want to play with an unlimited bankroll, you can turn table stakes off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. So we'll go ahead and click play now. We've got our room code here. We can copy it and share with our friends, or we can just join. And then what I'm going to do is join with a couple other players. You can see there's that room code at the top of the room. That is the exact same thing. That works just like Zoom does. So when you go back to the Unshuffled homepage, there's a field for room codes. And if you just type in the room code, like I'm about to on one of my devices here, 298, it'll just take you right to the room, and the player can buy in, and there, you've got another player.
Awesome. And so in that earlier stage where we were setting up the game, kind of building the game and telling it the rules, you would do that with whatever the game was that we were playing. And then you'd get to hear, and this is where we actually start like playing the game on the interface here.
Exactly.
Cool.
Exactly. And I'm going to join with one more player just because I think with 3 players, it'll be a little bit easier to explain the mechanics of the game. And that's it. We can go ahead and start.
Oh, you got me in there. That's nice. I'm the 3rd player, I think.
I'll go ahead and turn the volume off on the game, but we do have sound effects. You can see my video comes up on in the bottom left. The video will come up for all the players, but I'm going to turn it off just because it doesn't really make sense to have video on this plus the video from the Zoom.
Good point.
So let's go ahead and just click on that guy right there. We'll click on that. Cool. I'm also going to just mute the other devices here because I don't want there to be any echo.
Good thinking.
All right. So we'll go ahead and start the game. This is where you select the template. We've made fixed limits, so we're going to go ahead and click it. These ones with the little UN, these are all the pre-populated games that we've already created for you. So there's already a bunch in here. You don't have to build all the templates. We've got auto games in which the game will just control itself. You won't have to do any of the actual betting rounds or anything like that. And then we have the games that you've created. So I've got some games like Tic-Tac-Toe, 7-Card Stud, and Limit Holdem. So we'll go ahead and click Limit Holdem.
That's awesome.
And we're going to load it. And there we go.
Got a little audio feedback there.
Yeah. Better?
There. Yep, that's better. Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got our computers, we've got our other players, we've got our cards. 7 ace, not terrible. One of the things I sort of read online with fixed limit is you kind of want to play a little more tight, just not as much to gain from bluffing because there aren't as many chips to necessarily be won in every hand. I don't know if you guys would have similar thoughts on that.
Yeah, and you can't make big overbets. So it's impossible to really apply a lot of pressure on your opponent with a huge bet because the limit of your bet is fixed. And it also means that you can't always kind of get involved with hands, speculative hands like in a no limit hold'em, like low pocket pairs, and hope to hit a set and then get paid for a really big bet on a future street because you just never get to make that really big bet. So I've always felt like you do have to play tighter. You have to stick to more value ranges, and then that does change a lot of how your betting patterns work from there.
Yep, that's exactly right. And the same goes true, I'd say, in later streets. You can play maybe a little more loosely, because at that point, no one is going to really overbet and be able to push you out of the hand. There's not that much risk for what you're putting in to win potentially a pot. So anyway, so the way the game works is it's exactly like Texas Hold'em. There's no different in terms of the way the mechanics work, the number of betting rounds, the community card layouts, and the number of hole cards you get. And it's just the same rules apply as far as the ranking of cards. It's a high card. It's not a high-low game, although I'm sure you could play it high-low. It might be kind of hard to do that. In Unshuffled, we're going to go ahead and start the first betting round. Like we said, we can't control how many betting rounds there are in all these custom games, so you can do it here. And this is where the only variation really in Limit Holdem versus no Limit Holdem comes. And that is that there are fixed limits for every bet that you make. And correct me if I'm wrong, but typically there's always two. It's a small limit and then like a small bet and a big bet. And they're usually a multiple of the big blind. So our big blind for this game is 2. And so typically the big blind is equal to the small bet and is half of the big bet. So in the first and second betting rounds, you can only bet in increments of the small bet. And in the second and third betting rounds, or sorry, the third and fourth betting rounds, you can only bet in increments of the large bet.
And for our folks that are mostly just only familiar with Texas Hold'em, so in the pre-flop round, that would be you can only bet in increments of 2. On the flop, you can only bet in increments of 2, and on the turn and river, you can bet in increments of 4.
That's exactly right.
Perfect.
So at the casino, this would be called a 2-4 game. So if you were to walk into the casino, you would be looking at a 2-4 limit game is what we're playing here.
Nice.
Right. And to be clear, in those later rounds, the post-flop rounds, you cannot bet in the small bet increments, even though you're like, it's not that you're limited in the pre-round and then you can do both in the end. You can only bet in the large betting increment at the end of the game.
Great point.
So big blind is 2. I just will call with 2 with this player. Let me just make sure I've got the other guys all set up. The small blind can call. It's the only time you could actually call and only bet 1 because you're the small blind. Or it could raise an increment of 2. So I'm just going to call with all the players, and then I will check with the big blind. And then we go ahead and we see the flop, so we can burn a card in Unshuffled if we want to. We can just drag it and drop it, and then we can drag these 3 cards into these positions. We got our pair. Nice. And then we would do another betting round.
We're just getting joined by Eric Anderson here. Hey, Eric. We're just getting started going through this fixed limit Hold'em demonstration and talking about the first round of betting is done, and now it's on to the flop.
That's right. So we're still on the flop, pre-flop betting increments. So we can only bet in increments of 2 in this 2-4 game. And let's just say the first player does go ahead and bet in that 2 increment. Maybe the next player says, you know what, I'm going to call, and it's up to us. We've got 7s. We like our ace kicker. We're going to raise. If I want to raise, I can only raise in an increment of 2. So my total bet's going to be 4.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's say, okay, that's too rich for this player. He's going to fold, and this player is going to call. Great. So again, we would just burn another card. And we would do the 4th card, which is just the river. It doesn't help us all that much, but we'll do another betting round. One other neat thing, we've got this drop down here. This is for games like 7-card stud or other games where the betting round doesn't start with the player to the left of the big blind or the left of the dealer. So you can choose who goes first.
Cool. It's so interesting in these games where we're so used to playing on systems where it's a very traditional game. The computer already knows how to run it, and so it just all happens automatically. But because we're kind of teaching this our own favorite games, then we have all this control over the action. That's very interesting.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that was something that we did later on because we didn't think about it until a customer or a user told us about it. And we're like, oh, that's actually a good point.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and start our next betting round. This player is going to check. We're going to go ahead and bet again, but now we can only bet in increments of 4 because it's those post flop betting rounds. So we'll go ahead and make our 4th bet. And then this player is actually going to raise.
Oof,
so
dirty.
That's another thing that I sort of did a little bit of research on. The only tool you really have in limit poker to sweeten the pot or get more chips at your disposal is the check raise, because you have to bet in a fixed increment. The only way to get extra bets into the pot is with a check raise.
Yeah, Nate Mavis from the Thinking Poker podcast is always talking about how that sort of the skill edge comes into knowing when you can make those aggressive big bets, because there's only so many bets going in here, so every one makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go ahead and call because we still like our 7-ace, and then we'll see our last card. We'll do one more burn card.
Oh, did you set that one up? Did you set that up, Jake?
I did not set that up. That's great. That's great.
That's some run good. I love that.
We have to be a little nervous about the flush that's potentially presenting itself, but with only one player, I feel pretty confident in ourselves. Also because I can see the other player's cards. So
God mode.
So we're gonna go ahead and do the final betting round. Again, we can only bet in increments of 4. This player is going to go ahead and oops. So that was an incorrect bet. You can't bet in increments of 2.
Oh,
that was a mistake on my part. I'm sorry. That's one of the problems with Unshuffled is you can just bet whenever you can bet any amount of. We don't have the limit structure yet built into the platform, so you can bet.
Yeah, because we're still telling the computer how to play, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. All right.
So let's go ahead and get this back to 4. And this player can just call. So we see a pot that actually would make sense. There we go. So at the end of the final betting round, the players will just reveal the cards and the highest hand will win. That's just similar to all the other poker games. At this point, it's just the same rules as regular Texas Hold'em. And the winner will take the pot, and then the next hand will start as the dealer button moves to the next player. And that's it. That's how the game works. In Unshuffled, to select a winner in a custom game, you would click select winners, and then players would show their cards. In this scenario, we'll just because I'm on this computer, I'm just going to go ahead and show the cards from here. And we see that we won on the last card, which is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would select ourselves as the winner. We would distribute the pot.
That is cool.
And that's it. And then if you had a split pot or something, you could click on multiple players, and it would actually give you the opportunity to distribute the pot as 50-50 or 50-25-25 or whatever it might be.
Right. Mm-hmm. And for the more complicated games, obviously, you have to really know your stuff, because you're going to be directing you have to know, you the individual have to know, like, okay, who actually won the high low, and distributing it out like that.
That's right. It gets complicated with some of those high low games, some of that piece. So we've built a decent number of those games with the auto functionality, where the game will actually select the winners for you and do all that stuff, because there does come a point where the games get so complicated that it's almost impossible to play it without some computer intervention.
Right.
That being said, if you're going to play this game at home with your buddies, you're going to have to figure out who the winner is also. So
right. Yeah. Good point.
It's I think people sort of synonymize being online with speed and convenience, but it's, if you're doing it in person, you'd have to do it as well. So
yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, Rob and Eric, have either of you played much Limit Holdem? Do you have any experience in that?
I've played a ton of Limit Holdem. I live in Minnesota.
Yeah.
They don't have no Limit Holdem in Minnesota.
Is that a law or?
It's a law, yeah. The biggest bet you can make for one single bet on a live poker game is $100. So they do have a 2 to 100 spread limit game. which is 1-2. And then you can bet anywhere from 2 to 100 in any of the rounds. But most of the time people play 2-4, 3-6. They have 4-8 games. They have 8-16 and then 20-40. Some of the bigger games, but they're all limit games. So a couple things I wanted to mention. I know at our casinos, and I'm not sure how PokerStars is going to run their Limit Holdem game, but there's a limit of in a multi-way hand. If there's more than 2 players in the hand, there's a limit of 5 bets. So if you bet, somebody raises, you raise, somebody else raises, you can only do up to 5 until you get heads up. Then you can, I believe heads up, you can go as far as you want. You can keep
that's
going.
Interesting.
But as long as there's more than 2 players in the hand, you can only bet up to 5 times.
I think that's right. I think I read about that actually.
That's a little counterintuitive. Is that so? If you're heads up, you can keep re-raising each other as much as you want. But if you're multi-way, they cap it. Is that do you think that's like a game integrity thing, so that 2 players can't like push someone out, or that's a weird rule?
It could be. I'm not really sure why, but that is a rule. Whenever I play at Running Aces or at Canterbury, when you play limit. Another thing you mentioned, the only way to get extra bets in the pot is to check raise, which is very, very, very true. One of the things I learned way back, because when I first started playing poker online, it was all limit poker. So I was playing 50-cent, $1 limit poker most of the time. And one of the things they always told you, if you have a flush draw, you want to try to get some money in right away because you can't get it in later. So if you have a flush draw, you try to build the pot. And the only way you can build the pot, like you were saying, is to do things like check raising or just raising right off the bat. If someone bets out on the flop and you have a flush draw, then you go ahead and raise, even though you have nothing really. All you have is a flush draw. But the only way to build that pot is to start raising right away. So there's some different dynamics going on. Whereas in a limit game, you can, you have a little more options to put extra money in later.
Yeah, and it must be, when players are starting tighter as well, then their ranges post flop are going to look very different. And so it must be very interesting. Like the checking ranges must look very different as well, because you kind of have to protect against that. And there's also, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of getting to the flop with a stronger range. So I don't know if it feels like there must be more of those small bets happening routinely.
Well, but playing live, players are playing everything. It's just 22 cards. So when you say that you should play tight, I do. I mean, because I want to see a flop with a hand with some equity in it, but that doesn't mean that everybody else at the table is. I've seen some pretty amazingly bad poker at some of the live games, especially limit games. Because again, it's only $3. It's on a 3-6 game. Let's say most of the games I play these days, if I play limit, is going to be 3-6. So you throw it's a $3 bet to see it flop. Oh, okay. That's no big deal. It's only $3. Let's go.
Right.
So you get 7 people around the table are all throwing their $3 in. And then the guy on the big blind decides, well, I'm going to raise. And so everybody calls because they've already got $3 in. Let's
Yeah. Yeah.
I imagine the value of your kick. I mean, this is true in regular no limit hold'em and pot limit as well. But your kicker cards are maybe more valuable because people are probably playing a lot of the similar hands at a table, and so that kicker is going to become more important. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. The thing is though, if you do pair your bottom card, chances are that if somebody else pairs it, your kicker is going to be important, but there's very seldom that somebody else is going to actually have the same pair that you have.
Yeah, that's true.
So Yeah, I mean, kickers are definitely important when if you have ace king and there's a king on the board.
Mhm.
But if you've got like we had here, if you have ace seven, it's nice to have the ace, but the chances of somebody else having a seven is pretty small.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Makes
I'm
sense.
kind of curious. I'm definitely looking forward to playing a little more of this on the Saturdays leading up to that Wednesday night, because this does seem like a very interesting strategy, because you can't ever put any really big bets in. You kind of have to start building the pot early with all your strong hands if you want to win a big pot. So I wonder if there's less like checking back strong hands as part of this strategy, because you just can't afford to give up that opportunity to put a bet in. So it makes me feel like checking ranges must be weaker in this game than they would be in a no limit game. I don't know if that actually follows, but
Yeah, and
like
there's actually times, let's say there's a multi-way pot, you got 4 or 5 players in the hand, and somebody early position leads out on the flop, for instance, and you have a really good hand. Maybe you have a set or 2 pair or something like that. Or you even have a flush draw or a straight draw. You want to start building a pot, but there's 3 or 4 people behind you. If you raise now, you could lose all that action. So the thinking, there's 2 ways of thinking about it. Might be counterintuitive, but you might be better off just calling here and letting those other people get involved to build the pot that way, as opposed to raising now and forcing everybody else out of the hand.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess when you can't make big over bets, going heads up against someone is kind of less important, because it's less about making other people fold and it's more about getting paid with your value hand by second best hands, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And getting people to call. I mean, you
Right.
want as many people in the pot calling as possible. That's the only way you're going to build a pot.
Right. So it does feel like it's more a game. Like I think of No Limit Hold'em as a game where we try and get folds. And this feels like more of a game where we're trying to get calls from second best hands. I see. Yeah,
Right.
Kim just joining us. We're examining. We're taking a baby step into mixed games by talking about Limit Hold'em and the mechanics of how it's played and how it's different from No Limit Hold'em, and maybe some strategic changes we might make. So Kim, if you've got any, I know you're a savvy veteran when it comes to all the different poker games out there. If you've got any thoughts on how we can play Limit Hold'em differently than No Limit Hold'em, we've got a few weeks to get some practice in before we can start trying to steal each other's chips in the monthly home game. Yeah, I know Eric likes that idea.
The one other thing I would say about the game, which I think is maybe not obvious at first, but becomes obvious pretty quickly, is you know being your chip stacks don't really matter that much. I mean, they do in some way, but they're not that. There's no real. You should really be looking at the pot, not other players at the
Such a good
table,
point.
right?
Yeah, it's very hard to get your whole chip stack in if you have 100 big blinds.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, you're never going to get your whole chip stack in with 100 big blinds. It just doesn't happen.
And this was one of the limit poker. No limit poker is a relatively new addition to the scene. Like most poker was played limit forever, fixed limit forever.
Yes.
And so there was this real mastery of not calling with the second best hands, not betting with the second best hands, the sort of discipline around knowing exactly where you were in the hand next to your opponent's range. And that feels like something that would be harder to just kind of like pick up off the textbook. It feels like you do have to play more and kind of get used to seeing different actions and different dynamics and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there was a book that I read way back in the late 1990s, early 2000s called Hold'em Poker by Melmoth and Sklansky, and that was the Bible, and it was Limit Hold'em, and then they came out with advanced Hold'em Poker, which was also about Limit Hold'em. So the main books that got me started playing Hold'em were those books, and I was playing Limit Hold'em. My first game I ever played in the casino was at Canterbury Cards. I played 2-4 Limit Hold'em. That was, you bought in for $100, $100, which is, what is that? 50 big blinds.
Right.
But, but you would never, ever get 50 big blinds in the middle. There's just no possible way you could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So like the size of the pot is really quite predictable in a lot of these cases too. So you kind of know, okay, with these hands, I'm going to try and win a really big pot. With these hands, I'm going to try and win like a medium pot. It does seem like a very elegantly structured game. I can see why some of these pros from yesteryear really appreciate sort of like the skill and technical savvy that goes into this game.
Poker in its purest form.
Yeah. And it really, it really rewards your ability to range your opponent very narrowly because I think a lot of these one big bet of a difference per hand probably makes a huge difference to your total ROI. If you're putting in one big bet too often or one big bet not often enough, it seems like that would make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I know
last time I played Limit Holdem, I was playing 3-6 with a kill. I don't know. We're probably not going to be playing a kill, so I'm not going to get into that. But it's 3-6. And there was a woman at the table. I was waiting for the 2-5 table to open up. They hadn't opened the 2-5 table yet, so I'm playing some 3-6. And there was a woman at the table. She played every single hand, and she played every single hand down to the river.
Wow.
Unless it was raised by somebody, prior to that, she was going to call every single bet down to the river. And I seen her showed up with any two cards, and sometimes she'd hit 2 pair on the river and, win the pot. And I saw her take out, $100 bills every 15, 20 minutes. She was reloading her stack because she was just pushing them out into the middle.
Right.
So Limit Holdem is more like bingo to some people. Because you're not ever facing that big bet. So you could, it's just $3. It's just $6. It's just $3. It's just $6. No big deal.
Yeah, I think that capped ceiling does appeal to some recreational players too, because they feel like, okay, well, it's $2 on the flop. There's $2 pre-flop, $2 on the flop. That's $4. It's 4 on the turn. That's like $12. I can play a hand of poker for $12, get to the river, see if I won or not, as long as no one raises, obviously.
Yep.
So, but I think it puts them in a bad spot because then they're like, oh, well, it's $12. I can play any hand I want. But because of that very format, it's actually better for them to be folding a lot pre-flop. So that's
right.
Yeah, interesting. And yeah, Kim makes a great point. You pretty much always have drawing odds.
Yes,
that's
you
a
do.
Great point. So it's hard to get those folds.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can never take somebody off of a hand because of pot odds.
Right.
You can never offer them the bad odds to call.
And so that must be an element of where the really good bluffers come in, because what they're basically bluffing could be draws that came in that they don't have necessarily, but your opponent sees the draw come in, knows that you had a good price to call to get there, and might put you on that draw.
Yeah, it's there's not as much bluffing in Limit Holdem.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, at the end of the day, you better show up with a hand.
Yeah, that might not be my game then, Rob. I don't know if that's really a good fit.
Because if you bet on the river, the only player that's going to call you is somebody that has at least a pair.
Yeah. right.
So if they don't have a pair or anything else, they're just going to fold. So at least in the small limit games, like the 2, 4, 3, 6 type games.
And we got another comment from Kim here who's killing it. Often get flush over flush, so better to play ace or king high suited cards. Right, of course, because these people are getting great odds, so they are going to continue. They're going to make these hands. If you can make a higher flush, that seems like a gin spot. That's a great place to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's another one of those spots where it's like if you make the flush on the river, you would just be calling if someone bets if you had a lower flush maybe, but you'd be raising with your higher flushes.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Interesting. I'm gonna get my hands dirty with some Limit Holdem over the next little while. I want to see how this works because it does seem very interesting.
Don't see every hand, Jim.
Don't. That's right. Yeah.
I saw it. It does get expensive. I saw her spend a lot of money.
I'll try and find that fold button. It seems to get lost on the keyboard sometimes. I don't know what it is. Like it should be right here. Like I swear it was here just a second ago.
Intentional.
Jake, I know we've got you coming back in April, and we're going to be doing this on the third Wednesday of every month at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And so next, I forgot to check what the game was next month.
I was about to ask.
Does anyone have it up?
Well,
I can just check the calendar.
I think April isn't for the
May one.
For May.
For May.
Yeah, let me see. No, I don't want to take too well here. You guys vamp for a second. I'll just go check the schedule.
I think John posted it somewhere what all of them were going to be, and I don't remember what he did.
If anyone's interested, they can go to rec.poker /home game.
So let me get this straight. We're playing Limit Holdem practice games in April.
Yes.
And so the first mixed game in May will be the Limit Holdem game.
Actually, sorry, I think I gave you some bad information there. We are playing mixed. We're playing for the Mixed Holdem practice game is currently Limit Holdem.
Oh, okay.
Because in April, because it's March now, in April, that will be the monthly game.
Okay, so the second Wednesday of April will be Limit Holdem.
That's right. And here we go. I'm just pulling up the schedule now. April 13th, that'll be Limit Holdem. And then the May game is Limit Badugi.
Oh,
Badugi, Limit Badugi.
Nice.
So on April 20th, so basically on the second Wednesday of the month, we play the mixed game. So that'll be Limit Holdem. And then the next Wednesday, we'll welcome Jake back and start talking about the game that's going to be played the following month. So you can join us on April 20th. We'll be talking about Limit Badugi. I don't even know what the heck that is. So we're gonna have some fun raising my own ceiling for that one. Kim, I saw you on mute. Did you want to jump in with something?
No, I was going to just tell you that we were already playing the limit games
There you
this
go.
month, but you found that out.
So we got there eventually.
Book, which is
getting some weird focus.
Here we go.
Oh yeah.
And it's got everything in. First chapter is Badugi.
There you go.
First chapter.
So you'll have a little bit of a leg up on the rest of us by the time we get there.
I've played around with a little Badugi before. It's fun.
I've played a little Badugi. I like that. Yeah. I'll be curious to see how the limit Badugi comes in to play. I'm gonna
always fixed limit. Badugi's always. I think for the most part, I've only ever played fixed limit. But
sweet.
They probably have no limit variations as well.
If there's a way to gamble, poker players will figure out a way. They'll figure out a way. All right. Well, if anyone else has any questions for Jake, now's the time. Or any other
you
points
said it would be April 20th. Wouldn't it be April 27th?
Third Wednesday. Let me double check now.
Third Wednesday is book study day.
Yes, it's afterwards. The book studies
third.
Yeah, so the book study is at 6:30 Central, and this would be at 8 Central. So this would come right after the book study. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a powerful 1-2 punch. We got Rob, because Rob runs the book study every 2 weeks, and we're going into some fun stuff like that. And then as soon as that's done on April 20th, we'll get right back into it with Jake and start talking Badugi.
Sweet. Looking forward to learning more about Badugi as well. I'm not that familiar with it either. I have seen it before, but it should be fun.
It's just fun to say. I mean, how could it not be fun to play when it's called Badugi? There's got to be some good stuff coming out of that.
Badugi, Badusi.
Yeah.
Well, Jake, if people want to play and practice and play with their friends, they can join Unshuffled for free. And there's, why don't you just talk a little bit about, and I know you've got some fun challenges coming up as well, where people can win real money just for playing in these free challenges through Unshuffled.
Yeah. So anyone can sign up, unshuffled.io. It's free. In order to host a game with friends, you have to have an account, but only the host needs the account. Other players can join as guest users. If they don't, sometimes you send the link to a friend and then it's like, oh, I don't want to sign up and create an account now. So we just added that like guest feature. But We always have daily challenges or weekly challenges running on Unshuffled. And the way these work is we take the more standard games like Texas Hold'em or Omaha, and we create opportunities for people to play over the course of the entire week. And instead of playing, like a 2-hour night of poker, it's 15 hands, maybe takes like 20 minutes, play against a couple computer players. And then you're ranked on a leaderboard based on your, the chips you win. And at the end of the week, we give away the prize. So this week it's just $10. We've got a decent number of people who have started playing in it, but it's filling out. This guy did really well to start things off.
Yeah, no kidding.
We'll launch
13 out of 15 hands. That's gonna
I
start
know.
speed. Yeah.
We're gonna launch a couple more challenges as well, and then starting at the end of April, we're actually launching the Unshuffled Cup series, which I'm really excited about. It's going to be essentially synchronized poker, where every player plays the same hands. And against computer players, if you're familiar with bridge, it's like duplicate bridge, but with poker instead. And we're going to be giving away points over the course of the 10 weeks in each event. The prizes are going to be much bigger. We're looking at probably like $500 per event, and then maybe up to a lot more for the final event, which players can qualify for by winning and placing well in the season events. So it'll be like a season, just like the FedEx Cup for golf, where we give out points and there's like the finals.
Nice.
So really excited for that. And I think there's a link for signing up for early access for testing and just in general for updates and notifications for that, which I think maybe Jim's going to put on somewhere for you all to access.
Yeah, I'll try and if I can post a hyperlink in the comments for this video in the description, I'll do that and people can go check that out, sign up, get some notifications, get some early warning for when it comes. And I can tell you folks, they'll let anybody win this thing. I played in one of the challenges a few weeks ago, and even old Jim got a $10 Amazon gift card for kicking some computer butts. So do go check it out and enjoy that $10 Amazon gift card if you win. I did. All right, Jake. Well, this is great, man. I think we're going to have a lot of fun month by month as we kind of explore this world of mixed games. I'm sort of like famously ignorant of mixed games, but I'm so excited to be learning more about them. They do seem like a lot more fun, and I'm so glad that you've got this great platform where we can kind of share this love with the world and teach some people some other fun games. So kudos to you, man. This is great.
Thanks. Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to keep doing this. It's going to be a lot of fun to learn more mixed games myself, and I love mixed games.
Nice. All right. Yeah, well, thanks everyone for joining, and thanks Jake for putting this together. And we'll see all of you on April 20th, if not before. All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.